Brian.
On the agenda for 2 items today, the one agenda item is regarding the purchase of a John Deere 333E compact track loader. I'm going to request to delay that until next week. Tom Mullen wasn't able to come in with me today. I wanted him to be present when I present that.
For which one? That loader?
The track loader.
Okay.
So then the other item I had on the agenda was to replace the county engineer vehicle. It's a current vehicle, it's a 2006 Tahoe with a little over 160,000 miles on it. Vehicle gets about 20,000 miles a year put on it due to myself going to meetings along with other officers that borrow it at times to go to further away trips when they have more people that need to have more seating capacity to go to those meetings. Looked at the state bid and what they had for vehicles a year ago when we went to purchase some pickup, or a pickup. Went to the state bid and also went to the local auto dealership trying to get them to see if they could match the state bid price. And through a long process and many phone calls, they weren't able to match the state bid and stuff. So this year just looked at the state bid prices again. For the use of the Tahoe, we do use it for that third row seat once in a while, not on a regular basis, but when people go farther for meetings or when there's like this last flood and stuff, he's taking around FEMA and state aid and that. You want to have everyone in the same vehicle when at all possible to help explain what's going on. So looking at the state bid for a vehicle with a third row seat, like the current vehicle, along with a vehicle that has all-wheel drive with a little higher clearance on it, so when we go around job sites or going around after a flood, you don't get stuck or bottom out all the time. Some of the vehicles the state had were bottoming out as they went around the county after the floods. So options for that is pretty limited. There's a GM Yukon, Yukon XL, and a Suburban. Were essentially the 3 vehicles that had all-wheel drive and a third row seat. The Suburban and Yukon XL are both larger vehicles, which I don't think would benefit the county. So I'd recommend purchasing the Yukon off the state bid. The state bid price was $35,650.05 plus tax on top of that. That'd be for a 2014 Yukon commercial vehicle. Commercial vehicle is a scaled down version. However, they stopped making that vehicle, so what they would provide instead would be the 2015 SLE version. So it's a 1-year newer model, plus it's the cheapest non-commercial vehicle that they have. So that's my recommendation. Floor mats to go along with that would be the all-weather rubber floor mats instead of the cloth ones that work better getting in and out of job sites without, I guess the other ones get dirty so quick. That's another $191.25. So the grand total would be $35,841.30 plus tax. And that's slightly under what we had budgeted for this next year for that vehicle replacement.
And Brian, for next week, that track sale was 72,000, right? Something like that?
Yep.
But that'll be brought up next week
Yeah.
Okay.
when Tom is here.
Yep.
So right now, we're just talking about the,
So these two will be 108,000, and then that 330,000 we spent a few weeks ago on equipment. So roughly we're at about $438,000 in new equipment, right?
And that should be it. I believe we had, I have to look, there's $500,000 I believe in the budget. And then we get a little bit of money back through the sale of, we have a single axle dump truck we're going to be selling this year, and then the Yukon, or the Tahoe, we need to decide if we want to sell that or if the zoning office has a use for it. Their current vehicle's having some issues, and we're trying to decide if it's better to have them use the Tahoe and get rid of their current vehicle, or keep the current vehicle and get rid of the Tahoe.
Now for the, you'd mentioned like it's good to use like when FEMA's here for flood and stuff like that. Is this something that, to try and save some money to put towards the highway department building, we should just hang on to what we have for right now, for the times that we have a flood once a year to, like, I mean,
For the
I'm just wondering, do
vehicle.
we need a new SUV at this time? Do we need to start putting money aside for a new building?
Like I said, during the budget time, we can put this off a year if we want. 20,000 a year, or 20,000 miles a year. Come beginning next year, it would be at 180,000. There has been some issues going off the vehicle this year, especially this winter. Lights going off like crazy inside the vehicle, along with different sensors and stuff. So, it's at that age where we're starting to put, we've put in some new hubs, and the wheel hubs in the vehicle. Like has that. I think the vehicle's been in 4 times in the last 6 months to get repairs on it. So the maintenance cost is starting to get to us. So, you don't know what's going to happen in the next year. I think that if we hold it until next winter, we're going to have some issues popping up next winter again with all these lights going off. I think it's probably sensors. We've brought it in a couple times to get diagnosed. We don't have a diagnosis on it yet as far as what's happening. We may find out in the next few months, but I'm okay with either way.
We discussed this quite a bit at budget time, and at that time, we budgeted for it, so I'm gonna make the motion that we go ahead with purchasing the GMC Yukon.
Okay, some discussion real quick. Well, actually, we'll get a second first.
We need a second.
Second.
Okay, some discussion. Carol sent us, or got some numbers. I think most of you received them. This next year, at the end of this year, if everything holds true to what it was the previous years, we're looking at an increase of 3% to the budget of $328,000. And then in 2016, so 2 years, we have an extra pay period with an additional $301,000. And if things continue, that's a $600,000 increase to the taxpayer dollars. Now, if we're proposing a multi-million-dollar building, a couple of figures that came through was that a $4 million building would put on another over $300,000 on top of that. So just being cognizant that if we really want to get this building done, we might start needing to sacrifice in some of the equipment. Otherwise, we're going to have a $1 million tab next year or in 2016 that we're going to have to go to the taxpayers for. So my biggest concern is prioritizing our spending. Do we need equipment or do we need a new building? But to try and do both is going to be very taxing on people, and that's a concern. Is what direction does the board choose to go, a building or equipment? Because it's looking scary to try and do all of this at one time. So I'm just saying, be cognizant when we start budgeting for $438,000 in equipment and then wanting a multi-million-dollar building, and we've got an extra pay period in 2016 coming up for an additional $300,000 we're not aware of, and we're going to go up in taxes $328,000 at the end of this year. So just trying to figure out where our priorities and our spending are going to be.
And if we just don't buy equipment and we just put it off, we're not only gonna have to buy the new equipment, we're gonna have to put more money in repairs. And if you notice, if you followed along on the, how much we're putting into repairs on all the equipment, that's going up every year also. So, I mean, we just can't look at this or the shop. I don't feel that that's the right way to go about it. You can't keep putting things off and putting things off, because you just end up, in the long run, it costs a lot more money.
Well, and just like how a lot of people run their households too, if I only make $50,000 a year, I may not be able to afford a new house and a new SUV. We only have so much money. So the question then lies that if we choose that, yes, we need equipment, we may have to forego that building until our equipment needs are paid for. If we would like to have a building, we may have to sacrifice that equipment for a few years when the building's paid for. Now we don't have that payment, so then now we can use that money that's freed up to pay for that equipment. The issue is, right now, and Judy, I know you don't like me bringing this up, but it's the truth, we do have a very expensive jail that we're paying for. Had that not been on the books, it may not be an issue, but it is. So the question is, if we're gonna spend $400,000 a year on a building, and we need equipment, now do you spend $800,000, or do you say, we're gonna use the money that we have, the $600,000 for that building, plus the wheelage tax money for the next 2 years. That's $996,000, or $992,000. We could wait 2 years on the equipment, use that money, build a building with cash, not going to the bank and not paying interest, and then in 2 years from now, that's all paid for. Now you got $196,000 every year coming in from that time forward to use for equipment. But to try and do it all in 1 year is where my concerns are.
I don't think we're ready to go for a building. We don't even have any plans or any
And you're
costs or
saying right
anything
now
at this
that
point.
you're willing to go $4 million on a building?
No, Judy, I've never, ever once
Well,
preached that.
that's the numbers that you're putting out though, right?
It is, because that's the only thing that's been proposed. I had proposed, and I've always proposed, and everybody knows it, that I said no new tax dollars towards this building, and like I just said, we can do that. The proposal that, I know you had made a comment last spring that you were ready to go to the taxpayers for this building that Brian's proposing, is a multi-million-dollar building. And I said, we can't do that, we shouldn't go to the taxpayers for new tax dollars. And my position still stands, not to go to the taxpayers for another building, if we have cash to do it and pay for it. That's my goal. But I don't want to rob from Peter to pay Paul and take money from here to pay for this and then not have any left over for a building. And we've all stated on this board that, yes, a building is very necessary, and we should have a building, absolutely. But my thing is either we scale back the building to which we can afford, then you can have equipment and a building and all this. But if we're gonna continue down the path of the only proposed building, which is a multi-million-dollar building, we may not have money for these big equipment expenditures. So we have to prioritize and do some finance that shuffle things around to make sure we can afford both of them. But you may not be able to afford both at once, is all I'm saying.
I think we budgeted for the equipment for this year, and we have no figures yet on our building. None at all. We don't even have a plan of where it's gonna be or anything at this point,
Mhm.
you know. And we did agree to use the MCIT money, and also we have the reserve that we've been saving for already.
Mhm.
Plus, we added the wheelers tax. And we did talk about, we might have to cut back on some roads, which we've already done that. So we are planning ahead. We do need equipment. And we needed to upgrade it. It's been stalled.
We need reliable equipment. I
But
think
we also need to have some real figures about what we're talking about with this building and real plans.
What I think
And
we need
know-
to, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I know that Steve has done some contacting with even possibilities in the future of selling part of the land,
Mhm.
that kind of thing, you know, so, but we don't have any figures right now. We're just talking about it. And the equipment is budgeted for, and we need to keep that up.
Right, and that's all I'm saying is if we're making it today, if we're making it a priority to make sure that we have nice new equipment, just be cognizant that this building may not get built for a few years because we don't have, all we have set aside is $600,000.
And I don't think
We
it's gonna
haven't-
happen that quickly either.
And we haven't designated that $196,000 a year to this project, so as of right now, it's not designated. So if that's what we're truly designating it for,
We need to.
we should probably say that that money is designated for this. The concern is, are we robbing from Peter to pay Paul? We designate 196 towards a building, but then in turn tax the taxpayers for new equipment. I mean, you didn't really solve the issue. So that's the kicker. Do we want to go after a 0% tax increase and try and toe the line until things are paid for?
That's what our goal is at this point.
So for 2015, we'll hold a zero budget as the goal.
We're trying to, yes, I think we're always trying to do that. We really are.
Okay.
Okay, I think we have a motion and a second, and it's just concerning the
The vehicle,
vehicle,
GMC, yeah.
not the,
This is a Yukon SUV?
It's the Yukon, yep, it's the standard Yukon, not the XL, so it'll be essentially the exact same size as the Tahoe.
And you said it was to go to meetings and stuff and checking on when you have roads are bad?
I mean, all the same use Tahoe for now, you know, there's a lot of meetings in Rochester and St. Paul.
You can't use the county vans and stuff?
I guess county vans might work for some instances when they're going on job sites. A county van's not gonna, what kind of size?
Is this kept over at the highway department building?
At my house.
At your house? So it's basically a personal vehicle?
No, it's not a personal vehicle.
Well, if it's kept at his house, it's kind of a personal vehicle, right?
Really, if a police officer has their car at their house, then it's their personal vehicle.
Well, it kind of is designated to them, and they start from their house on their job. So I guess I think maybe what Dana's kind of getting at too is, you know, like the surveyor keeps their vehicle here, veteran services keeps their vehicle here, and then they use their personal vehicle like the rest of the employees to go back and forth to work. Is this something that we are doing with this SUV, that it's here, and then if somebody from the highway department needs it, they use it, go out, and it gets put back in the shed at the end of the day, or is it, or I guess?
Well, maybe you should ask Ryan. I mean, there's many times that he's leaving his house, coming here, checking roads.
Yeah,
And I know that because we've discussed this previously.
And I know there's other workers and employees that do that same thing. The question is, and maybe this is kind of what's alluding to, do all the employees get vehicles to go back and forth to work? I mean, that's the question. I'm just saying, and I guess I think maybe Dana's alluding to that too, is what is it used for and what's the justification for spending $36,000 is basically the question.
I like the fact you went and looked at a price on 2014, saved $10,000. Is there a good, is there 2013 sitting on a lot with no miles? If we looked a little more, could we save another 10,000 for a good use? Little or no miles?
I guess it's a different process if you look at a used vehicle than that.
Is it?
Than a new vehicle. Just without the system set up for public funds. I'm not saying you can't buy a used vehicle, just because of the pricing issues, and once you get over 25,000. Now if it's under 25, I think it does simplify some things.
Because you know when you buy a new vehicle,
Yeah.
they depreciate 20%.
Yeah, but you get into,
You've just thrown away 20%.
on a new vehicle, you can go out there and you can say, this is what we want for a vehicle, give us your best price, which is what the state does. When you find a used vehicle, how do you compare that used vehicle versus another used vehicle? You know, what's the better deal on stuff? And the state's process really isn't quite set up for that same, I guess, the same process, you know. And then with the state bid, the discounts off the new price of the vehicle, they kind of usually get the best bang for the buck for the new vehicle, not always.
You know, it used to be state bid was a really good way to get a good price on a vehicle, but lately it looks like about the same as what you can get at a dealer.
I think this one, the price that they had listed for the 2015 SLE is $50,000. I don't have that sheet printed here.
50,000 and change or something.
Yeah, a little bit over 50,000. So really, you know, it is quite a discount off the new price. And if I can mention a little bit, you know, the vehicle where it's stored and stuff. It used to be stored here at, I guess county engineers had the approval for a long, long time to bring the vehicle home. When I first came to the county, I did leave the vehicle at the county shop here in Caledonia. And then for a while I was leaving up at the shop in the Crescent. The issue always became, there's so many meetings that are out of town. I put an extra hour on the road coming down to Caledonia, getting the vehicle, going back. A lot of these meetings are up in Rochester, St. Paul, or wherever up north. I put an extra hour time on the road getting to and from work, plus it's longer from Caledonia to Rochester, Caledonia to wherever, compared to being from the Crescent. So I'm able to take an hour off my time that I work from the day. The first hour that I'm driving that day, I don't count, because that's the time that I'm saving from not driving to Caledonia and back. Plus the additional time on the road from the Crescent to 76 versus from Caledonia up to 76. That's another 20 minutes difference each way roughly. So you're saving an hour and a half every time I go to a meeting worth of my time that gets saved on either time taken off my timesheet or time taken off of cost me to travel.
Well, I know that all the employees get paid mileage to go to meetings for using their personal vehicles. I guess I'm just curious why the same doesn't apply. I mean, when we go to meetings, or Shar, or, you know, Donna, or whoever it is, get paid mileage to use their personal vehicle, they don't come to the county, get a vehicle, and then go. I'm just curious why it doesn't apply the same for the county engineer.
But human services, they use their county vehicles. They're supposed to use as much as they can instead of their personal vehicles, because it's much more expensive to pay someone to drive their personal vehicle than it is for them to take the county car.
So do the human services girls all get new vehicles to take home then?
You're not comparing apples to apples, I'm sorry.
Well, I am.
I think this was part of the deal with a county engineer as far as the contract, when county engineers were hired, that they could have the vehicles so that they could go to the situation as needed, roads, whatever. I don't see that that's really an issue with that.
Well, I'm just
And as
curious
far
if
as
this
the
is something
price,
that maybe is
I can
getting
actually.
kind of off base, but I'm just maybe we need to revamp that, because I don't know if we need to be giving personal vehicles to go to meetings. Otherwise, then the same applies to human services. And I don't want somebody coming back saying that you're discriminating, that this person gets a vehicle, but I don't, to go to the same meetings. That's my concern, is it equal across the board for all department heads?
Not every department is the same though, Justin. You can't say that everything that happens in human services is the same thing that happens in the sheriff's department. Do we tell the sheriff's department people that they can't have cars to be out at their places?
Yeah, that was a discussion we had a couple of years ago that was being looked at. I guess comparing apples to apples, the main reason it sounds like we need to get an SUV for the county engineers to go back and forth meetings, and comparing apples to apples, other department heads that go back and forth to meetings. I'm just curious if that's the reason or not. And I don't mean to harp on it, but like I said, next year when we're looking at $600,000 increase to the taxpayers, 2016 has an extra pay period. I'm just curious if we need to be a little bit tighter on our spending and reasons and justifications than.
Where's the $600,000 tax increase that we're giving them next year coming from?
Okay, so right now, 0%, if everything goes the way that it currently is, there'll be a raise in taxes, $148,776. With a 2.7% insurance increase, which is what the norm is last year, which we don't know, but what it has been is 2.7. That's an additional 1.73%, or $188,227. We're in a negotiation year. In the last 10-year average of the negotiations and the increases of pay to the salaries, if that continues on this negotiation at 2% COLA and 2.7% insurance, that's a 3.062% or $328,036 increase. Now, like I said, in 2016, there's an extra pay period that gets done every 12-year cycle. So being cognizant that in 2 years, you would have that 2% raise, 2.7% insurance of $328,000 that would continue for 3 years on the contract that's negotiated. Plus in 2016, the extra pay period is another $301,000. So that equals $600,000 in 2 years that we got to be cognizant that we potentially will have out there. That's if we don't decide to put in a new building. If we do, in a $4 million building, the bond payment's about $400,000 there approximately for that, which then now you've pushed that $6 into $1 million. So that's all I'm saying, is being cognizant that we do have kind of a snowballing effect that can occur. Watching our spending has got to be a priority.
I think we've had enough discussion. I think we should call the question. All in favor of purchasing the Yukon for the highway department?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I'm for it, so that's 3-2.
Yeah, so I think.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay. Justin, you're on with them.